It is a special day. We have Sherrie the Okra Lady on to talk with us about gardening all year long, right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast. Ding it!
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country.
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. So Sherrie, what's going on?
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on. It is an honor to have you on. We've been watching you for a while grow in your garden, and you seem to be very productive.
It's fun. It's very, very fun. And we got a lot of snow last night, so it was a very exciting morning for us as well here in Texas.
So what? Just so everybody knows, what zone are you in?
I am in Zone 8B in San Antonio, Texas, and I get to garden all year long.
Except for when you get snow.
I've recently gone to San Antonio, but it was in the summer, and that's like hella hot. Very different than today, though, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. Super hot. When we first moved to Texas, I was like, I wanted so bad to go back to Florida. We stay in the triple digit in the summer, and in the thick the summer we're in the triple digits. So yeah, it's very hot here.
It's hotter in Texas than it is in Florida?
Yeah. I definitely prefer the weather in Florida over Texas. But husband, when he retired from the military, we ended up here in Texas. So we decided to stay here.
Oh, okay. So, and that's something, because in North Carolina, where I am, I'm in Zone 8A. It doesn't get super, super hot like that, but it does get, we'll hit 100 degrees a couple times. Is there a time in the summertime that's like hard for you to grow?
No, because I guess we're just used to it. And my biggest crop here is okra, and okra loves heat. So yeah. I remember the first year we got here, it was 99 degrees at midnight. I couldn't, the sun was not out. I'm like, why is it so hot here?
One of my favorite things, and being in Chicago, I think this is a reason why, is to go out, in the evening, go out to a restaurant with friends or family, and then come out afterwards. And it's like it's been cool in the restaurant with the air conditioning, and you walk outside and it's like that warm air. Now, that's not 99 degrees that I, kind of miss, but that warm kind of 70, 75-ish, So I don't know. I've had a list of places where I plan on moving to, and San Antonio has officially been crossed off. Although I am greatly jealous of your ability to grow all year long. I don't know if I could do 99 at midnight.
Yeah, that's tough. Can you grow in Texas all year long?
Yes, all year long. And then what I did was once my spring, summer crop is out, I'll go ahead and do a fall, winter garden. Right. And up until a few weeks ago, I had mustard greens, I had collard greens, I had kale, I had chards, I had some peas, snow, snap, sugar peas, broccoli. I get to grow a lot. Beets, turnips, a lot of root vegetables, carrots, rutabaga. Yeah. So I grow all that. And I started my garlic as well. And the garlic will do fine, even though we got all that snow, because it takes roughly 10 months for it. So but I'm able to produce a lot of produce or groceries in my backyard during the fall and winter too. Just mostly a lot of root crops, though, which do really, really well with these cold weather, with the cold temperatures.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too, is a lot of root vegetables, and which I particularly love, so it works for me. And collards, they do well in my area too. Because your lowest temperature is like 3 or 4 degrees higher. I'm trying to say it right. Higher than my lowest temperature. Okay. So we're not that far off. But you seem to have hit your lowest temperature last night. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It sounds like your winter garden is very much like what we're designing for our spring garden or maybe even our fall garden. Like you're in the midst of winter and growing the
Yes.
things that I aspire to grow come spring.
Yes. I think you're right. I think you're perfectly right with that.
So how does your garden differ in the spring?
In
Like
the
starting
springtime,
March,
I
April,
grow.
May?
That's when I'll start my tomatoes. I'll start my peppers. I'll start my corn. I'll start my black eyed peas, my purple whole peas, my red beans, my green beans. I'll start my lettuce. Let's see, cucumbers. Yeah, I have a lot that I'll be direct sowing come the middle end of March. So it'll be a lot that I put out there. But I'm really looking forward to the corn this year. Now with the okra, I won't put that out until closer to May, because that's usually the last item that I sow in my garden is the okra, because it loves the heat. I need it to be nice and warm when I sow those seeds.
Do you direct sow your okra?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I do both.
And drop it right out. You do both?
Yeah, I do both.
Yeah.
I do a little. Yeah, I've done. I direct seeded one year, and then I had flea beetles jump on them like it was nobody's business. And then so I was like, well, I must do some starts the next year. And I've done some starts, so I do a little bit of both just in case something happens. But you know what's funny? The ones that I direct sow, they grow the exact same rate as the ones that I transplant. Kind of pisses me off because I use all that extra space in my house, and it's like, well, for what? You know what I mean? For what? So.
But Ben, do you think that's because the heat is finally taking off then, though?
You know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
I grow 2 okra plants a year because that's all I can stand to grow. My garden just can't take but so much.
Yeah.
But so right now, you said earlier you're not growing right now. Is that by decision or by necessity?
That is by decision. But I do have still out there in the garden right now just the garlic, and then I have some of the collard trees, and I have the collard trees, the garlic, and I think I have 1 or 2 other items. But I pulled up all of my mustards, all of the chards, all of the carrots, all of the turnips. I pulled all my peas all up prior, because I want to make sure my soil rests for a couple of weeks, and then I also will amend the soil by adding black cow manure. I'll do some Epsom salt. I'll do some more garden soil. I'll do worm castings. Just depending on what I'm growing, that I'll cater that soil to whatever area I plan on growing something, to make sure I'm adding stuff. Like when I do for my okra, I'll make sure I add bone meal and most importantly the blood meal to the soil, so that's going to have that nitrogen to sustain it the entire summer. And I don't use pesticides in my garden, which is good because I have a lot of help, believe it or not, from the I get a lot of birds. I have a lot of lizards, frogs they just live in the garden, which is awesome. And then a couple of garter snakes too. They kind of help out. So especially the birds, the grasshoppers got really, really bad last year. And then I noticed that I had more birds in my okra plants. And I'm like, what are they doing? I'd see them flying in. Plucking out the grasshoppers for me.
The grasshoppers are like a plague, a biblical plague. They are horrible. When they come in, they will destroy everything.
So you were talking about the kind of going from winter to spring to summer. I have some questions around kind of what you're doing in the summertime, because it seems like maybe we're catching up with you, like some of the things we're growing are the same then. But have you always grown all season long, all year long in Texas where you are? Or was this so I'm so intrigued by that, because it's taken me so many years to get there, if you will.
No, I've grown always all season long here, from day one. From the very first year I started growing, I've been doing it the entire year around.
Is that your first garden?
I used to get some things wrong. I look better.
Is that your first garden, Sherrie?
I'm sorry. No, it's not.
Okay. How long have you been gardening?
Basics, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you could say I got my very beginning when I was a child. My father, we grew up in Missouri. We had a huge backyard, and my dad, I was probably maybe 10 or 11, and we grew tomatoes and And peppers, jalapeno peppers, and bell peppers. Yeah.
So how many minutes are we in before I start getting weepy? Is this a record? 10 minutes in?
Yeah. Dude, whenever people talk about their families growing gardens together and when you're kids, like, I mean, and you can probably relate, Sherrie. I'm sure you do. There's very precious memories in your life. You know what I mean?
Mine were crappy memories. Wait, mine were crappy, just for the record. Like,
I hated it when I was a kid. It was a chore.
Yeah.
I really didn't care for it. That I'm older.
Yep.
Especially with both of my parents being gone, and but during that time, I hated it. I hated going out there having to weed and do all that stuff. But yeah, you're right though. Now that I think about it, now that both my parents are gone, I kind of missed it, and I'm glad children. I volunteer them in my garden. I voluntold them. I'm sure they feel the same. We care for it, but I'm hoping that when they're older, when I'm gone, they'll think back and have good memories of
absolutely
out there.
Well, I can remember. Yeah, I can remember. Instead of going out to play, I used to have to like break beans and shell peas. And even up into my teenage years, it was kind of like, I hated that. Like I didn't do it then, but looking back on it. And so I don't grow like shelling peas or anything like that in my garden now, but there are still those moments like maybe those things were seeping into my garden soul. Sorry, had to. They seeped in, and then it's kind of led me to be the gardener that I am now. But yeah, I think they'll absolutely, 15 years from now, look back and say, "My mom had it right." Like she had it figured out.
Yeah. How about you? You the same way? Did you grow up with a garden?
I did. Yeah, my grandfather. He it's a very interesting story. He grew a garden, but he had somebody give them half of their land so that he could just garden because the lady's husband had died, but he was a big gardener. So he would always go to this other land and garden. I would have to go over there in the summertime, and I hated it. It was hot, and it was miserable. But, looking back at it, man, it was the best, the most memorable, because it's quality time with him. You know what I mean? Those were the times that nobody was there to bother us. And he taught me a lot of things, I learned to eat a lot of stuff. So there was a lot of good memories, but I same way, man. It's like, man, I got to go out there and pick those damn beans again. Like shit, but it was worth it. So, and my son's the same way now. He's like, he only likes to come out and plant the big things. So I told him this year he's in charge of growing all beans, peas, squash, and melons. So.
Yeah, for me, I only have one memory of actually being in the garden growing up, and this was I was young enough to need to hold my grandmother's hand as we kind of walked in the rows. And I remember because this wasn't a home garden, this was like a community garden spot, maybe a mile or so from our home. And so I can remember being there, and it's like, you guys have gotten in the car, drove up there, we're going to do what we're doing, we're not going back home. I remember I had to go to the bathroom, and so I'm probably like 6 or 7 or something. And my grandfather generally was a no nonsense kind of guy. And so it's like, take that girl over there to, and use the bathroom. I can remember thinking about garden snakes. So that was my very first memory of gardening. And then you fast forward where I get out of having to go there, but still have to do the work. Right. But again, that was years and years, because my grandfather was a fisherman. They grew up in the country, right. Down south in Mississippi. Yeah. And so they've done that for years and years. And then when that space became available, like as they were in Chicago and, still having that urge to grow food, I don't remember any other vegetables besides beans and peas though, which is kind of interesting. But
yeah.
But anyway, it's a memory that I think back now on and say, I can't believe I'm doing all of this. I remember my very first garden, which was here, of my own, and my grandparents came. I've told this story before on the podcast, but hey, I'm here. I can tell it more than once. But they came and helped me plant my very first garden, which that's definitely a positive memory for me. Yeah. Even though my grandmother was like, "You're not doing that right," So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. If they're not doing it right, then you just go with it. You know what I mean? Just, yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I'll do it better. That's how it was with my grandfather. So. But I mean, those are all memories, and with you gardening year round, your kids will see going out in the garden in the wintertime, which, most of our listeners do not have that opportunity. I'm sure there are some red eyes out there right now thinking like, damn, I wish I could get out in my garden right now. But, it's a different beast when you have to go out there and it's cold, I think. I mean, do you agree?
Definitely agree. It is a little bit different. So, and then the good thing though about having the winter fall, I don't have to water as much.
Yeah.
I've spent so much time. We've talked about this on the podcast, how much time I spend because I hand water everything still.
Me too.
Yeah.
Man, y'all need to automate, man.
There shall come a day. But I do wonder, so if we, again, take a step back, because last year we were talking about, like, it's nice to have a break, so to be able to kind of reset. Although you and I have continued to do garden things, it seems we found our way to continue to do that all throughout this season,
right?
Winter and coming into spring. But Sherrie, have you found, like, it sounds like since you've done it, since you've been there all year long, you don't have like the going back to say, hey, I had a break and now I need that break. Like, do you ever get tired of I have to go and tend these crops, and here it is December and it's 25 degrees outside,
No, because it's my place of peace with my job and everything going on. My garden gives me, it comforts me. It's my time to be my quiet time, my quiet space. So I'm able to go out there, even if it's cold, got on my gloves or whatever, but I'm out there and it's peaceful, it's quiet, and my mind is able to just, be at peace. Nothing, no anxiety, no stress. I'm not worried about work or family issues or anything like that. I'm just out there tending to my garden, talking to it, and it helps me. It's therapy for me. So it's not bad at all. Even when it's cold, it's not too bad. Now, when it's hot and I'm dodging from bees and not bees, the wasps and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm cursing, I'm sweating, and it's a little harder in the summertime, but in the wintertime, it's nice, it's quiet, it's peaceful out there. It helps me out. It's my therapy. Yeah.
Batavia, why are you crying again?
I'm just hoping you're going to be a great co-host and jump in here as I try to collect myself.
I will. I will, but I just
like
damn.
It's yeah, man. Listen, now don't judge me for my tears.
No, it's what though,
it's just beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
love it.
It's one of those things. I say a lot that I need a break from my garden, but this year I really haven't taken much of a break. And I mean, Sherrie, you may agree, it still slows down considerably this time of year.
Yes.
In the garden. I mean, you're not like heavy out there, like hitting it all. I mean, I can go a couple days without going out in my garden if I wanted to, but I do agree with you of like having that peace and stuff like that. And that's a big part of garden. I think that it's the unspoken thing is the garden therapy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think it's an undershown, I'm losing my words, part of gardening though. So
it is.
Pardon me for sniffing and snotting.
Are you good now? Are you good now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, I don't know. Clearly, Sherrie has the trigger button on her end, so I am good for this exact moment. I am. I couldn't agree more, and it's so refreshing because there is a part where I'm clearly not outside now. Like, I have probably 2 feet of snow in my backyard right now, and this has been it's accumulating over this last couple of weeks. We've had more snow in 2021 than I can remember in the last 5 or 6 years. And I've always thought, because I don't think I'm in my forever home, my forever garden, if you will. Do you like that? Forever garden. Hashtag it being forever garden. Yeah. I don't think I'm in my forever garden. I do believe that I will be gardening in some place that is warmer. And it feels good to hear that, you don't get tired of it, right? You find kind of different things at different times you're getting out of it. And that just warms my heart, my garden heart.
Well, this time of year is a busy time for me. And I don't know about you, Sherrie, but, things aren't really frozen. Do you get out and you really, because you make a conscious decision to take a break, which I applaud you for. And that's something that's really hard to do. Giving your soil a rest is key. And to get out, do you take this time to do anything else in your garden, like expand it or anything like that? Or what do you do when you're taking, in the wintertime when you take that time off?
Well, I've been trying to talk my husband into letting me expand again because, like Batavia, this isn't my forever garden. We do plan on moving again once my kids actually leave the nest. I want a huge plot of land out in the country somewhere. So I'm not even sure if we're going to stay in Texas, but I do think about what other crops or new things I want to grow. I do a lot of my time I spend on YouTube researching and finding out about different crops and how you can enhance your garden or get your soil to work harder for you. So I'm always trying to learn as much as I can about gardening and vegetables and different things. So there's still a lot going on. I know my kids get tired of, they'll come in and check on me if either I'm upstairs in the game room or the movie room and I'm not looking at movies, I'm looking at vegetable shows, gardening shows, and they're like, Mom, not again. But yeah, I'm always I can. So I'm pretty boring to my kids. I'm very boring to them, but that stuff really excites me. So I'm always, even though I have that downtime, I'm researching and trying to find out what new item I can introduce into my garden and and hopefully to my followers that are watching. And I learn followers too. I'm always going on their pages to see what everyone else is growing, because you learn so much from other folks. So I really enjoy it.
Preach it. We've been saying that for the longest time. Like, we love looking at what everybody's growing and the different techniques they're trying and, stuff like that. And, it's crazy too. Like, you see a lot of people, and I mean, just if you're not on Instagram, you should definitely go check out Sherrie. What's your handle on Instagram?
It's at My Backyard TX Garden.
There we go. So if you check her out, she's always posting like big harvest and, little tips and stuff like that. And you really see like how she has her garden set up, how Batavia has her set up. Everybody's different. And it's like I say all the time, we're basically doing art with land.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what and the way, like I know you have your okras, basically, are they, correct me if I'm wrong, they're on the edges of a walkway?
Yes, but I'm going to do something different this year too with them. It's going to be crazy, insane.
Is that a hint?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Should we find out more as we log into your account?
Yeah, that's right. You're going to have to stay tuned.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. Okra in particular, and I joke about it because it's so funny that you grow so much of it, because I find like these are completely unofficial statistics. 50% of people love it. 50% of people hate it. And I'm one of the 50% that love it. Like, I'm an okra lover. And it's funny because I've grown it for a number of years. And I think 2 years ago when I grew it, I was giving, because you know as well as we do, when it comes on strong. So I was giving okra to my neighbor across the street. And it clearly had gotten away from me, so I had some really big pots, and they were at the point where if you didn't eat them like right then and there, they were no good. And so last year coming into the garden, he asked me, because they had put some in the freezer. He's like, so what do you do when they're, that big? And I'm like, yeah, you're probably going to want to throw those out. He's like, I just hate throwing away food. And I said, don't worry, I'm growing them again this year. We're going to get you some sizable, nice, but, edible size pods. Yeah. So, but yeah, I love it, love it, love it. And I think the only person I know in my direct family that loved it was my grandfather, and he's passed away now. So I'm basically eating double the okra.
Wow.
I think I'm going to cut back this year in okra, but that's a lie I tell every year about almost everything.
Yeah. As long as you cut your tomatoes back this year, I'll be happy.
I did a count. It's going to be less. That's all I can say.
Good. Yeah. That's all I'll say. Yeah. And I mean, I spend this time of year doing the changes as well. I added 6 trellises to my garden this year. So I had to redo some and added more, and I added cattle panel trellis, which I wasn't excited about because I'm not a big fan of them. And then I got them up and I was like, okay, now I'm excited. Yeah.
So what are you going to grow on them?
So actually it's funny you say that. I am going to grow peas and beans, obviously, but I also want to do, my big thing this year is I want to grow protein. So I'm going to do cowpeas and black beans as well. So,
beans too, I'm going to try. It'll be my first time trying black beans.
Yeah. Okay. Then we're going to grow them together.
Yes.
And I shall watch.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys want to ship any, because they ship well, feel free to.
Well, we'll see how many you get. That's my biggest thing is how many is it really going to be worth my effort? You know, if I get a pound of beans, like I can go buy that shit for 84 cents at Walmart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
that's the reason in this space where I haven't, ventured out into shelling peas or beans or anything like that. I mean, the space that I have times the price that I would pay at the store, so we'll see one day again when I'm in that next growing space. Because I'm a lover. I mean, I'm a lover of a lot of things, but I'm a lover of peas and beans too. So
So in the spring, when does your spring planning start? Because I mean, at this time we're coming up towards the middle to end of February, so you're kind of done. When do you start back planning spring stuff? And your spring stuff, I imagine, is like what you planted in the winter, right?
No.
Okay.
My spring be all the good stuff. Well, I mean everything's good, but the cucumbers, black-eyed peas. I'm going to do corn. I'm really looking forward to corn, but I'll probably start that second or third week in March.
Okay.
Is when and I have some stuff growing inside. Usually what I like to do though, I get those little pea pots, and with my corn, I'll just stick the corn. I'll wet the pea pots. I'll stick the corn seed in there, and then I'll take it and stick it right out in the dirt before it germinates. It just seems like it does better for me because I've conducted a few experiments. And so if it works for me, if I watch how they grow side by side and one is doing better, I'll stick with that method. So I'm kind of the rule breaker when it comes to growing vegetables. I don't follow all the rules. Like with okra, they say you need to have it spaced out a certain amount, maybe like a foot or so in between or whatever. I'm thinking more like 2 to 3 inches. I'm packing as much into that bed as I possibly can. And believe it or not, it's been working for me on some things. Now, some things I've learned the hard way not to do. But if it works for me, I'll just stick with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some things that work when you pack them close together? Because spacing is something that we talk a lot about, and I've had mixed experiences with it too. And this year I got burned pretty hard by it. So I was, what do you have good luck with and bad luck?
I had really bad luck with my tomatoes last year. I've had too many too close together, and they were like, "Heck with you, lady. We quit."
So they just stopped.
They stopped. Yeah, they stopped. They just stopped growing. It's like their roots just didn't get enough. They were just packed too closely together. So I'll never ever do that again. I'm going to at least go probably in my whole row, which is probably about 8 feet. I'll probably maybe do 3 tomato varieties in that. That way everything has enough time or enough space, and because you have to prune them and make sure they're getting enough airflow. And then I'm watching for the hornworm tomatoes or the hornworm worms, but you got to make sure everything has a nice, good airflow. Now with okra can take anything. I'm going to pack that crap so close together. That way the birds can get in and pluck off those grasshoppers. And then all I do is just, when it starts growing up, I'll just prune that as well by snapping off the leaves that are just in the way. So, but I pack as much okra as I possibly can together because my family and my coworkers and my friends, they all love okra.
Right.
So now,
blessing, yeah.
They eat it raw. I like to eat it raw, but I'm freezing it and I'm sending it to folks who want it. And then my coworkers, we eat a lot of okra, so I'll grow as much as that as possible. My tomatoes and my cucumbers, definitely make sure I have enough space for the cucumbers because they get really big. And lima beans. I'm really going to grow a lot of lima beans this year as well.
I don't know if I've heard anyone else growing lima beans kind of in our family garden circle.
I've thought about it, but I'm not convinced. Have you grown them, Sherrie?
Oh, yes, indeed. Last year, oh my goodness. The one thing I had them on a little huge tomato cage and it still was not enough. It was like a monster wall of of lima beans. But now I'm going to have them go up my cattle panel to go that trellis that I made because they really got, and I had a lot of beans that came from that. And I like them fresh. So I didn't dry them at all. I just dried a few so I could have some seeds. But I like to get them fresh, and then I'll vacuum seal them and freeze them. And then all winter we're eating a lot of lima beans that I grew from my garden.
So how big of a row of lima beans did you have?
I had, 2 big trellises, and we probably ended up with maybe 4 pounds.
Okay, that's not bad.
The shell of the beans itself, once you remove it from the shell. the shell. So we did a fantastic job with those lima beans, and we eat a lot of beans. Matter of fact, I cooked red beans today, and I'm going to grow more red beans this year as well. So, the red beans, what was crazy? I just went to the grocery store and got a pack of their red beans, the dry beans, and just stuck them in the ground.
Yeah.
And they grew for me.
Yeah, they're a seed. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Do you do a lot of vertical gardening?
Because sometimes they say they won't. Yes, they do. Yeah.
Sorry.
I do a lot of that, especially with with cucumbers, with the I definitely do a lot of vertical gardening.
That's such a great way to maximize your space. I think you were going to talk about how sometimes things you buy from the grocery store, they have a coating of some sort and they don't grow as easily in your garden. But there's a lot of stuff that do, that does just fine. So
yeah, you're correct. That's exactly what I was going to say. So you never know until you try it.
Yeah.
Can I go on the record and say that shit's bullshit about what they say? So
yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's like sweet potatoes. The only things I can think off the top of my head are like sweet potatoes, rutabaga, and maybe like a regular potato. The only things that really get like a good coating on them to prevent. Mm-hmm. But like beans and stuff like that. Like, I mean, what's it hurt? Like, I mean, every single kid that's ever gone to kindergarten has always taken a green bean and stuck it in the ground, green bean seed, and grew it, or a bean of some sort. Yeah. So we all know that they're going to grow. You know what I mean? I think we're just, as gardeners, we're trained like, oh, we have to have this nice seed from this awesome company to get it. And that's really not the case.
Yeah.
I think there's also, when it comes to that, I think there's also, you want to kind of hedge your bets. Like you want to, you don't want to spend time with something that isn't going to work, And so I do think that there is that feeding into, this is your best chance. Buy this thing from this place and then you'll do fine. I think you're right, though, rutabaga and sweet potatoes, which I got some organic sweet potatoes back here in the fall. And I prepared them like I was going to create slips and I got nothing. So luckily I still have some sweet potatoes from my garden last year that I'll use to create my slips. But I've seen people online that said they've used sweet potatoes from this grocery store. So I don't know if it was the variety I had or what, but I am team.
I have 3 in my pantry and the slips are this long. Where are we at? Yeah, about that long. They're about a foot long. And my mom had them and they were organic though. And she brought them to me last year, and she's like, "You want these?" I was like, "Well, it's a little late, but yeah, they're still sitting in there growing slips as we speak."
Yeah. So. Well, that's the thing, though. Like you said, like Sherrie talked about, I'm going to give this a try, right? Like you'll never know until you try. And I love a good garden experiment. So there are a lot of things that are old wives' tales. There are a lot of things that, all right, maybe there is, if you want to produce, tons of a thing, maybe this is the path you should take. But when it comes to what we're growing in our backyard or front yard.
Yeah.
Not on this show.
I'm all for give it a try.
Yeah, I wish I could grow in my front yard, but this HOA around here. We have a home in Florida as well. Now I could grow front and backyard there. So we still have that house. I think eventually when we do move, we'll sell both and get something really nice where I could grow whatever. Have horses and maybe a few pigs and chickens and ducks.
I have seen you riding a horse a time or two on your Instagram page.
I'm a horseback rider. Yes, I love horses, but I one of my very own one of these days, eventually.
And you can't have chickens where you live now?
No, I can't have chickens. It's HOA over here. We can't have chickens, and I can't grow in my front yard either.
Yeah. So we do. I can't grow in my front yard either, and I still do. And I just put herbs out in my front yard. So, and I also can't have chickens and I still have them. So,
rule breaker.
Oh yeah. I'm like, look, fuck you. If you want to put a lien on my house, put a lien on my house. I ain't moving anyways. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But I mean, my whole argument is where I live. Like we live in a neighborhood and then a mile up the road, there's a guy with horses and donkeys, and then there's like a chicken farm down the road. Like we're in a neighborhood in the nowhere, and they're like, "Well, you can't have it." And I'm like, "You just can't have roosters." Like I've had these chickens out here for 4 years, and you have no idea. Yeah. They don't make any sound. They're quiet,
Oh, that's awesome.
So you just gotta fucking do it, man.
Brand spank new. They would know. I mean, it's brand spanking new.
Oh, I'm joking. You don't just get crazy like that, but
the opinions of Ben Gardner are not the opinions of the Backyard Gardens podcast.
As a matter of fact, they are, and that's just the end of the story. So,
and or 50% of the Backyard Gardens podcast.
Well, now that may be true, but damn it, what I say represents us, and that's it. So, no. But I mean, you know, it's one of those things too, and we've talked about this on the show. It's a damn shame because, like in my yard, I grow lemongrass, which I mean, you know, it's not a fruiting food, but it is food, you know. And I grow different herbs and stuff like that. But I know, and I've read about this, where people will grow sweet potatoes in their front yard because they just are very attractive vining ground cover. Yeah. And then you once you harvest them, then you have them, but until they grow, they don't look unsightly or anything like that. So, you know, that's how people get around that.
Yeah, I don't have an HOA or anything like that, but I was nervous for years about, you know, digging up I live in the middle of the city, so digging up my front yard and saying, I'm not even going to just plant things that are subtle. Like I have a whole, you know, cattle panel, you know, like I'm going all in, I'm trellising all over the place. And so far, so good. There've been no complaints that I'm aware of, is what I'll say. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with all of the food that I share with my neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you go to plant in the summertime, Sherrie, like, and I mean, is it kind of like with me where you're basically just managing issues throughout the summer? It's like everything you planted in the spring stays there?
Yeah, everything I plant in the spring, say, except for things, you know, like the lettuce and the spinach, those things will bolt really quickly. So once they're gone, I'll put something else in its place that's more heat tolerant because it really gets so hot here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Because there's a reason why I worded it that way.
Why's that?
So when you and I, Sherrie, talk about growing in the spring, we don't have a spring, and I'm sure you don't have a spring. When does it start getting hot? Like
like April.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, in April, it's like we can't grow anything. So our spring vegetables are most people's summer vegetables.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? So, and it's funny because when I asked you, like, what are you growing in the spring? It's completely natural for you to be like tomatoes and cucumbers and all that stuff. Where somebody, like when I lived up in Massachusetts, it was clearly like up until like June, you were going to grow lettuce and kale, like everything that we grow in the wintertime, you would continue to grow throughout and all the way up until what is legit summertime. Like, what is the first day of summer? June 21st?
June 20-something,
yeah.
So.
I mean, I remember 2 years ago, so summer of 2019, we still had 50-degree daytime temps. So the high was 50 degrees. It was a super-duper wet and cold summer. That's not normal. But, I mean, it happened, right? Last year, we got warmer a little bit quicker. But that's the thing. Like, I was listening to Sherrie's list of vegetables for the spring. And so many of those are things I would plant in my summer garden. Yeah. And but what ends up happening, it sounds like, is you just basically have a longer season to grow them. So you're growing them from March, April, all throughout, I imagine, you know, August, September, October.
Yeah, November. Most of it goes all the way through to November here. My okra usually hangs on until November, and then one year I made it to December.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are no like weepy eyes. They're more of like green with envy as I listen now. So we've transitioned.
But summertime has its own problems when you have that kind of heat. I mean, can you talk about that, Sherrie? Because I mean, I talk about it, but I think it's nice to have somebody else validate what issues we have. Because Batavia doesn't believe it.
I just don't believe you. Yeah.
That water bill is high. I water, believe it or not, I have to water 3 times a day. I'd water before going to work, come home on my lunch break, water, and then have to water again in the evening. It is just that hot. I mean, that soil is drinking up all of that, the water that you put down. It stays hot because you have to be careful with your bell peppers. You got to make sure you have enough leaves. I try to position my okra in a way where it throws some shade. Because if not, it'll cook your food while it's trying to grow. My popcorn, or my corn, believe it or not, my glass gem corn. Do you know the kernels popped while on the cob? just that hot. And people are like, no, 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 that can't be happening. And I up and showed them. You can see where it really cracked the kernel. They actually popped open from the heat.
Wow.
It is warm down here. So I have to really be careful in the way I position, because I don't want my peppers all scorched from this.
Yeah.
Really have to be careful. Or sometimes you have to cut them while they're small, because you know that sun's out. You don't have enough shade, and the everything is so tall that I can't throw a shade cloth on everything. So it's just I have to position my veggies, and I try to rotate them every year. You don't want to grow everything in the same spot each year. That way you keep disease down in the soil. So I rotate everything. But the heat is one thing. Then I have to deal with a lot of wasps.
They
love to sleep under the okra leaves because the okra leaves are so big. So you have to be careful when you're harvesting. You're watching out for snakes, the garter snakes. I mean, they don't bite, but it does kind of scare you when one's running feet.
Anything that jumps at me makes me scream.
My great aunt told me, and she's a country gal at heart, going back to many, many years. And so she said, well, this is what you need to do. I need you to get a stick. And every time you go out in that garden, I need you to poke those plants and shake. So whatever's in there should be running out. And I said, okay, I gotcha. Sherrie, do you do any gardening in containers? I would think not, given how hot.
Yes, I do.
Get. Oh, do you? So please talk about that, because there's another person on this podcast that is insistent on not gardening in containers, and I'm team container gardening.
All of my corn is grown in potato sacks. All of my corn. Potato sacks only. I only grow corn in those cloth, or those sacks, the potato sacks. I also grow, believe it or not, a lot of onions in containers. I have a long container that I used to grow. I can't remember, some type of flower I used to grow in the very, very beginning. But I grow my corn. My onion does much better in those little containers. What else do I grow? I grow quite a bit in containers still. Oh, squash. I grow those in containers. And the yellow and the zucchini. They do really well in the containers.
So are you watering those any more often than you're watering the rest of your garden?
No, I'm still doing 3 times when it's really hot. 3 times I have to water it. And I just keep, I just water the bottom, make sure I don't get the leaves or anything wet. And a lot of times too, because it's so hot here, and I don't see as many bees as other people. So I always have to hand pollinate a lot of my stuff, which is crazy. But I do a lot of pollinating. Especially with the squash, and which is kind of hard. It was kind of hard to do the cucumbers, but now I have this one that produces mostly female flowers, and you don't need to pollinate it. But I was really struggling there because I didn't have enough bees in my, because so many people are using pesticides, whether it be on their lawns, whatever. It was kind of scary for a bit. And then I started adding more flowers to my garden, like zinnias and marigolds, to get them, to attract them. So it worked out better once I did that. But I had to compensate by adding more flowers because it just were not enough bees at all. So that was kind of scary because we really need bees.
Yeah.
I had the same problem when I lived up north. I didn't have bees either. And I did not stay there long enough to really get into the whole flower thing. And I had to hand pollinate a lot of things myself. Luckily, I could go out, you can just give it a good shake sometimes and it'll work. Yeah. Especially for the cucumbers and stuff. But that was a real issue. And that was the same time frame. I guess this was back in 2010 when it was really the bee crisis was being talked about more and more.
Yeah.
And so, now I try and plant flowers and it does seem to help. I mean, certain flowers, there's a reason why I have 24 salvia plants growing in my house. Because they were just covered in bees. So I'm like, hey, if that helps the bees, I'm happy. You know what I mean? So
yes,
there's a real issue if there's no bees. So
absolutely there is. I am a lover of flowers though, so it's right up my alley. Luckily, I don't think I've ever had to hand pollinate. I've had some things that didn't produce, and perhaps if I had hand pollinated, it would have. But it's one of those things that's on my do not want to do garden chore list.
You should try it this year though. It's interesting to do it, just to kind of give it a little rubby rub and then give it another rubby rub. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm not gonna add it to my list.
Yeah.
I'm going to be stern with that.
Yeah, well,
and you know, just by this conversation now I know, right? I'm all like, listen, I shall spend 2 hours hand watering my garden, but I shall not shake.
Because Batavia is in zone 6A for asshole. So
that's a whole conversation. And every time you say it, I feel bad because I think people listening are going to think you're an asshole for calling me an asshole.
Hey, look,
but
that's their problem.
If anyone heard that episode, if anyone heard that episode, it was like a high level of assholeness that I was displaying. So only because I was like dead wrong. But anyway,
dead wrong. But that's okay. Yeah, it's funny. We have a lot of listeners out in California, and I like to creep on them this time of year, and they're getting full blown tomatoes right now, like in their outside gardens, and I'm like, man, what the hell? But you talked about crop rotation, and Batavia is not a fan of crop rotation, and we just did a whole episode about that.
List. Yeah,
and but and I wonder if it's because like you can grow so heavily throughout the year that you kind of have you always crop rotated, or is there a reason why you started doing it?
I think there is a reason why I started doing it, because I remember a couple years back, and some of my plants weren't doing as well as the others, and I started doing research, and then I found out that there are certain insects or pests that live in the soil, and if you don't rotate it, they'll continue to stay there and weaken your crop each and every year. So it's best to just rotate it. And then once I started doing that, I've seen a big difference. So that's why I'll always stay with it. And it's not like a major rotation. It's mostly like clockwise. I just make sure I never grow my okra in the same location every year. I always move it over or up a row, or I just keep it rotated. It just makes everything healthier and happier, and it keeps my soil from keeping disease in it, because if I grow, and then I always have to make sure that I read about what you can grow after you've grown something there to make sure it's able to, because that makes a difference as well. So it takes a lot of research, but if it's something that you really enjoy doing, because I love feeding my family, to saying, hey, what do y'all want? Let's go out to the garden, or have my neighbors come over, or my friends. And I know for a fact that the stuff that they're getting, there's no pesticides on it. It's grown here. I know exactly what's in the soil and everything. It just makes me happy to know that I grew this and there's no pesticides on it, and I know everything that was added to the soil. So it's a little bit of work, but it's so worth it. It's so rewarding to me.
Yeah, and I think you said earlier, don't cry, Batavia. You said earlier, you kind of said it really good when you were like, I spend a lot of time researching and a lot of time looking. And I think, I do the same thing, like, and I always have ever since I started gardening. Like I spend, especially this time of year, I stay looking up some ad nauseum. Like I'm like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start this plant, and I'll research that one plant up until like I go to Google and it's like, you visited it this day. There's no new websites to read about, but that's kind of what sets people apart. And it really is what makes somebody a successful gardener, is when you have that passion to where that's what maybe you don't have to research as much as I do, or maybe even Sherrie does, or Batavia, but the fact that you are looking constantly and going, it shows. And that's why your gardens are so healthy and happy, and they grow year round like they do, because growing like you do and I do year round, it does take a little bit of maneuvering. And,
it sure does.
And the soil is the biggest part of that. So, you were talking about adding worm castings and all that stuff. Like, do you spend a lot of time researching soil and stuff like that?
Yes, I do. Believe it or not. And then my kids are like, Mom, it's just dirt. No, it makes it different. It makes it different. You're going to make sure that whatever it is that you're planning on growing is going to get enough of what it needs, so you don't have to deal with blossom end rot, or you're making sure your okra is thriving, because you just got to make sure that it's just right. It's like I tell them, it's like I have to fuel that garden the way we fuel our bodies. We want to be energized and give it our 100, give it our best. I need to make sure that food that I'm growing is getting everything it needs, the vitamins and everything it needs, the sunshine, the water, so it can give me the best, because we're in turn going to take those vegetables, and it's going to fuel our bodies. So we want to make sure that the circle is nice and working the right way. We want to make sure everything is getting what it needs, so that everyone is healthy and happy. So that's the goal, Right. Even though kids are like, Mom, it's just dirt.
Yeah, it is just dirt, but it's more to it than dirt. And so As the season goes on, do you fertilize?
Well, the fertilizer that I like to use is mostly like blood meal, bone meal, worm castings or the worm casting tea. I use a lot of teas, and I also like using the what's it called? The fish
Emulsion.
I get it from that right there. Yeah. I love using it. Stinks, but I enjoy using that. You know, I add a lot of water to it, but I think it really helps my my soil.
So since you brought up fish emulsion, I watered my greenhouse the other day with fish emulsion, and it got up to like 85 degrees in there. And I had locked that bitch tight, boy. I shut because it was cold when I watered, so I locked it up. I opened the door. Oh my God, it was horrible. And my cat's circling the outside of the greenhouse the whole time. I was like, what the hell's wrong with her? Well, that's why. It was rough, boy. But that stuff does work, and it's you know, it feeds on a microbial level. It's not even like big boost. So it's interesting that you don't use like an all-in-one fertilizer or anything like that. You make concoctions and stuff like that, different recipes.
Yeah, I don't want to burn anything, and I don't want to add anything. I just want to just keep it all natural, like my dad did.
Yeah.
Like we did as kids, you know. The only thing I don't do, my dad hated, was collect rainwater. That was a pain. I didn't like doing that at all.
How do you? Well, I just have like rain barrels set up, and it does, man. It makes a big difference.
It is so much better. You're right, but I just, you know, we had those real back in the day, those really large aluminum trash cans, and I remember when we took the lid off, and there were squirrels in there. They were dead and blown. Of course, I was like, oh my God. And we
add it to the list of the thing I can never do now. Like,
it was gross. I can still see that. I was a teenager.
Well, so you make it so things don't crawl in there now. And I can, dude, that was back in the day though. I mean, you know, I don't know how old you are, but it's either way, it's
48.
There you go.
Hey.
There you go. So, you know, if you go back then, like people weren't talking about collecting rainwater back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't the in thing to do. So there wasn't rain barrels with screens on them and stuff like that. It was like, hey, let's set this out here and catch something. So, you know, now I put a cover over mine. So there's a screen so I cannot get squirrels in it because that would ruin my day. But I can tell you, my dad came down after a hurricane and decided he wanted to wash my roof off.
Oh, good night.
And all the stuff that you would never see from the roof. Washed into my rain barrel, and 55 gallons of fart water is what it smelled like. I'm like, Dad, who washes a roof? Like, really? You're washing the roof. We just had a hurricane, and we got 40 inches of rain, and you're washing the roof? Like, whatever.
God bless them for wanting to be helpful.
You know what?
All right, let's get off of the stinky roof. So let me ask you one more question, Sherrie. Is it, because I only see you in the garden, so are you the sole gardener in the house?
Yes, I am. I am the one and only. I mean, I have to bribe. Like for the winter time now, I do get them out there more often because when it's time to harvest those mustard greens and collard greens, it's all hands on deck. If not, I'd be out there for hours and hours and hours. I mean, it was just too much. But yeah, usually, well, no, always, I'm the only one out there.
And I feel like that's a theme I see as well, right?
Yeah. Like, looking good, babe. Keep still doing what you're doing. And my kids now, they're not so much done. They're not out there at all. It's me out there. And usually when I do get photos taken, sometimes I'll wear my little neck holder for my phone, or I'll get my oldest son. I'll have to bribe him, and he'll take photos for me.
Yeah.
I'm the main one there in the garden.
The thing about that is it's your design, your ideas, it's your space. You know, we talked earlier about kind of the idea of the garden therapy. It's nice to be able to have that space that's your own, but it is a lot of work as well. So I know that, you know, it's the same thing when it comes to Ben and I. We individually kind of man our own gardens by ourselves. And I see a lot of that online, it seems.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I think the idea of other people like putting their opinions on my garden, I wouldn't be so cool with. So I'm okay with like the price I pay for it is doing all the work myself. You know?
You're yes. True.
Do you can at all?
No, but you know what? I saw you, and you're the reason, believe it or not, seriously, you're the reason I bought all those mason jars. I'm going to learn to do that this year. I'm definitely going to do that. And it's because I saw it on your page.
I got you back.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I saw it, and I'm like, really need to learn to do that.
I got your
back. I know who to go to.
I'm going to do a whole series this summer, man. It gets like last year in the middle of summer, it got too hot because, recording YouTube videos, my camera literally overheated. And so I was like, you know what? This summer, I'm just going to do like a whole canning series because it's like, it's a big mystery about it. And it's just unlocking that mystery. So join me. I would be more than happy to help you because, and what you can do the reason why I asked is because you can tell your husband or even your kids, they can help and be like, because that's what I do in my house. I grow everything. My wife washes and cans it. That's the deal. And I'll step in and can when there gets a whole lot. So that's something that you can, and your kids and and your husband might enjoy that too because there's a difference between getting it out, but once you're making it and putting it away and it goes in the cabinet and you can see it year round, it's a big difference. So
I'm looking forward to trying. I am.
I hope you do. It'll be cool. It'll be I do a lot of pickled okra, so I figured you would like that.
Good Christmas presents. Yeah.
Yeah, especially bread and butter pickled okra. Ooh, it's good stuff.
Is that one more recipe that you're going to hold back from us until, okra season is over?
Well, no, I need to perfect it. That's really what the problem is with my okra pickling recipe. So, it's hard. It's hard to get these things right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's just like a lot of people, you don't really see the whole family out there. And if you do, the kids are like, yes, mom, yes, dad. So, I try not to make it a punishment for my son. When he does something bad, I try to, but sometimes it is what it is. It's nice to have somebody dig your holes for you, though. So, well, look, this is the time of the show where we typically give out a recipe. But since we have a guest on the show, we have a couple of questions we like to ask our guests. Are you down, Sherrie?
I am down.
All right, she's down. So our first question is, what is it that you love the most about gardening?
I think harvesting. That's the best thing I love, harvesting. Yeah.
That is a respectable answer, and it's an honest answer. And
I'm glad that it was that because I wasn't ready for more tears.
Nah, I feel like some people would be like, I like watching the seed grow. It's just I like harvesting. That's the shit. Yeah. Because that's that real shit. You know what I mean? When you get your basket full.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite crop to grow and why?
You already know it's okra. Because so many varieties. There's jambalaya. There's orange ging. There's red burgundy. There's Texas longhorn. There's cowhorn. There's let me see. There's so many of them. There's a Clemson jambalaya, heavy hitter. And there's a new variety that I'm going to introduce this summer.
What is it?
I can't wait. Oh, you'll see it when you see it.
You don't want to make an announcement right here? I mean, come on, this is your opportunity. No, I'm joking.
Announcement. But it's awesome. But I love to eat okra. I love it raw. That's my favorite way to eat it. I like to rinse it off and then slice it or just eat it like a carrot. It tastes so good to me. I could just chomp it. And my kids are like, Mom, it's gross, but it's really good.
It's good for the system too. Good for the body.
So I'm gonna bend the rules a little bit here. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question, and Sherrie, if you could help everybody out in the world, tell us about harvesting okra, the right times to do it, so we can I feel like if there's anybody to ask about okra, it is you, and I need to know. Because sometimes I get them too big. Sometimes I get them too small. What is the perfect way?
It depends on the type. Like the longhorn, that can be good about 7-8 inches long. As long as it's tender when you touch it and it's nice and tender and it's not too long, just however you want it. Some okra, I get it really short. Some of it, I get it medium size. And then like the longhorn and the cowhorn, I like that really nice and long. But long as it's tender when you touch that pod, you're good to go. It doesn't have to be, you just don't want it to be too long or hard. Once it's hard, you can just throw it away. I check my okra. I'm harvesting in my season when it's really going good. I harvest at least twice a day. There's 2 times harvest. If I don't do it first thing that morning, I'll do it when I come home on my lunch break and again in the evening because it grows so fast. And I have quite a few plants out there. I'll have quite a few plants out there. So I guess for me, it's just easy. I can just eyeball it. But for someone, you're going to really have to just research and make sure that you're picking it at the prime time, making sure you're checking your seed packet and finding out the appropriate length that you do need to harvest it. But for me, I've grown it so long I can just eyeball it. So I really can't help that, unfortunately.
I had almost made it to the end of the episode and was going to stick with cutting back on growing okra. And I think she may have gotten me when Sherrie, when you started naming the different varieties, because
I need to find a different variety. I always grow the same one because I've been saving the seeds for years, but I need to get a different one now. So, and when you prepare it, okay, there's no secret that okra can be slimy.
Yes.
Okay, it's not a secret, right? I'm not saying I'm not rocking anybody's boat, am I? I mean, let's be straight.
One of the things I enjoy about it too. But go on.
You like the slime?
I like the slime.
I like that. I do.
Really?
Yeah, delicious.
Okay. So, because
it's delicious.
I was gonna ask, like, how do you get rid of it? But you know what? I'm not even gonna ask anymore. It doesn't matter because it's apparently delicious.
It's delicious to me, just like that. Just slicing it and then to have that little sliminess on your tongue and then that crunch.
Okay.
The best.
That's it, man.
Okay.
Yeah, the only way that I know to prepare it beyond fried okra is I'll roast okra. And it's not slimy when you roast it. With a little bit of oil, some seasoning, in your air fryer even, or straight in the oven if you want to roast it. But I'm like Sherrie, like I prefer it fresh, So
Me too.
If it's not fresh, which I didn't even know was a thing until like 5 years ago. Like I didn't even know you ate okra fresh until like 5 years ago. I'm the classic put it in a pot with some water and basically boil it, and that's the slimiest you're ever gonna have it, and I love it. On top of some black-eyed peas or any bean or anything.
You don't take the slime out?
Not at all.
All right.
I know. I get it. I get why people I get the turn off, but it does it for me. So
did you say why people?
I know, WHY.
I thought you said white people, and I'm like, well, I am white, and it's okay. It is A-okay.
For those that have been listening that didn't know,
So, and the last question, Sherrie, is, can you please give us your favorite garden recipe? A nice, easy one, but I'm going to go ahead and just say, I was going to say an okra one, but it sounds like it would just be raw, so... Any recipe you want to give us? Can you give us something easy?
Oh yeah, I can. I can give you my family and my friends love my collard greens. Well, my greens in particular. I do a mixture. I do collard greens. I do mustard greens. I like the giant green ones, and I love the red giant mustard greens. Also add some tatsoi greens. Those are good, and kale. Let's do a little bit of the dino kale and the Swiss chards, and also the curly kale is also good. What you do, you bring it all in, you wash it up really good, clean it up good. You don't have to wash it too long because, like I said, I don't use pesticides or anything in my garden. So you're rinsing them off, making sure there's nothing on there, and then you're gonna get them, roll them. You're gonna slice them, and you're gonna have this big old pot. And I always start. A lot of people don't eat meat, but I'm a meat eater. I always start by getting some salted pork. And I'll drop it in that pot while it's nice and hot, and it'll sizzle. And I'll flip both sides of it over so to get it nice and brown and crunchy. Then I'll take probably smoked turkey wings. I love smoked turkey wings, and I'll add those to the pot. But before adding those, I'll chop up maybe 2 little garlic cloves, and I'll get a white onion and I'll slice it up nice and thin, and I'll throw it in a pot. It's got a little bit of grease in there from the salted pork. Throw that in there. You're going to caramelize everything, get it sizzling. Then I'm going to take some chicken stock. I'm going to add that into the pot. And then once that's there, I'm going to take all those greens that have, the mustard greens, the red ones, the regular collards, put them all, the tatsois, put them in that pot, add a little bit of water, some salt and pepper to taste, let that cook for an hour or two, nice and small, nice and marinated together. Then I'll go inside that pot and I'll take out those smoked turkey wings, and I'll remove the skin and just leave all the meat and put all the meat back in the pot, and I'll stir it, and I'll add some cornbread, and there you go.
Cornbread and collard stick, boy.
Yeah.
So I don't ever cook mixed greens. I always only cook collards, and I know I've had them growing up, and so my my plan this year is to, I mean, I love collard greens. My plan this year is to mix some as I'm cooking. And my hope is that I can kind of stretch my collard greens a little bit further as well. Because to make a big old pot of collard greens, you need a lot of collard green leaves. But if I kind of pick some of those other leaves from the garden, the kale and, the mustards, I'm really excited about that because, again, I'm a big fan of, Southern style greens. I think I do everything that you do with the exception of the smoked, the smoked turkey necks or the smoked, what's the first?
Turkey wings?
Turkey wings. No. I do turkey. I do like smoked turkey, like, legs mostly. But the first was pork. It was
pork.
Pork. Yeah. That's the only thing I don't do when it comes to cooking my greens.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's funny because I don't eat meat. I'm a pescatarian. But we cook collards a lot, but we don't add anything like meat to it. But it's funny because that's a meal in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus us, we're like, okay, we got to add a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We got to make some rice with it or something to kind of make it more filling. So,
yeah.
And I love that you're growing so many greens in Texas. Right, because the perception is it's so hot. I grow my greens in the summer, but again, we rarely get even 3-digit temps here. But it's so cool to hear that you can get those harvests. And I imagine like this holiday season, I imagine that there was a lot of pots of greens being cooked in your house, Sherrie.
Definitely. Yeah. And my boys eat greens every day. If I made them every day, they'd eat them every day.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. I mean, your kids are having a healthy diet. You know what I mean? So now, Sherrie, do you grow Brussels sprouts?
Yes, I do.
What is your trick?
First year. My trick, I don't know. I pretty much just dropped the seeds out, and then I went and checked on them. I checked them for pests every day, but they took forever. Yeah. Oh my goodness,
it's crazy.
That is the slowest growing vegetable ever. But when it produced, and then I went out and I saw all those little cabbages on the stalk. Yeah, they just took a long time, and I just hit them with water every single morning. Not a lot, but every morning I give them a little bit of water.
When did you plant them?
Oh man, that probably was back in, it took a total of 4 months though. So this is February.
Yeah.
Yeah. February, January, December. So probably October it was then. I think October. I think I put most of my seeds in October or November.
Okay. Yeah.
To start my fall.
This is my 3rd year failing at them. And I'm like determined. I'm determined. I'm going to get me some damn Brussels sprouts. So I know that like I look at my extension service and I'm supposed to start them in July here. And
July?
In July. I'm supposed to put seedlings out in July. That's like, because it's real hit or miss, like if you can get them or not. And I imagine your area is probably the same. It depends on if it cools down in the right amount of time. So I put them out in July, and I swear I have one that's just over a foot tall. And it's got some small Brussels sprouts. So I'm getting close, but it's not doing what it needs to be doing. So.
Oh, wow.
It's always this year.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give up. I'm gonna in July. I've got a space in the garden for Brussels sprouts.
I'm gonna keep doing them in the fall, winter for me. They seem like I don't know. I think they would bolt if I did them here, just in Texas. If I did them in July.
Yeah, apparently they don't bolt.
Really okay, cool.
Yeah, they just form loose heads.
Loose heads.
Brussels sprouts. So if you get them and they're like real loose, that means that they were too hot.
Oh, okay.
So that's what but hey, what do I know? I can't even get a damn Brussels sprout. So, well, it's been awesome having you on. Thank you so much. I know that we kind of talked around in circles about growing year round, but I think there's a lot of little tidbits in there. And I think you said the important thing was growing, is taking care of your soil in between and giving it that little break, even though you can continue to grow, you don't, because you know the outcome of it. So it kind of fits in with what we're talking about coming up, which is dirt.
Also, container gardening is good too.
Yeah. I don't like it because it's too damn hot.
Yeah.
But bigger containers might do me well. That could be the case. So Is there anything you want to tell the good people before we go, Sherrie?
Hey, yeah, just everyone keep on growing because it took me forever. I finally grew broccoli this year too. So, because I failed so many times at it, and finally I got some broccoli. I think it was about a month ago. I was able to get a nice head of broccoli, and it was trying to go to seed, but that snow probably just messed up. We'll see once we go out and uncover everything. But yeah, I finally grew up. So just keep growing and just don't give up. That's keep on growing.
That's a beautiful thing. And check her out on Instagram at My Backyard TX Garden. And everybody, give her a like and a follow. And thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me,
Sherrie.
Thank you both so much.
All right, Batavia, close it out.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you want to see what we're up to or just stay up to date on all the announcements regarding the show or anything gardening, then you can follow us on Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV.
We love seeing what you guys are doing, so use hashtag BYG Podcast in your posts, and we'll be sharing your gardens with the Backyard Gardens community.
And check us out on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we will post this show, all of our other shows, clips, and then also some gardening tips and just gardening entertainment. And you can see us at our website at backyardgardenstv.com. But that's it for today's show. So help us as we learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. We'll call this one a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.